Hello, and welcome to this introductory demo for Cisco data preparation. Here is the business problem we illustrate in this demo. Bigco is a men's hosiery manufacturer, which has just acquired Lilco, a smaller manufacturer. Both companies sell their products worldwide through large retail chains. Management has an urgent need to understand how the customer bases of the two firms match up. They want to understand areas of strength and weakness for both companies and uncover new opportunities for synergy and sales growth. To begin answering these questions, I have detailed sales data for Bigco, showing the number of units sold for each product at each outlet of each retailer for each day over a 7-day period. I also have equivalent data for Lilco sales. However, the data is structured and named differently, and its order is different. I have a deep knowledge of Bigco data, but I have never seen the Lilco data before. My goal is to combine these two files into a unified data set that provides a single view of sales data for my team's analytic toolset. Several factors make this a difficult data preparation problem. First, data sets from the two companies are structured differently and use different naming systems. Second, I begin the project with a poor understanding of the Lilco data. Third, I won't be able to use my old standby Excel to explore the data because it is much too large. Finally, management needs results quickly, so I don't have time for a trial and error approach to analytics. Cisco Data Prep helps with all of the above problems. It lets me reconcile and unify disparate data. It speeds the process of data exploration, even for extremely large data sets, and lets me work independently of IT. Most important of all, it greatly reduces the time I spend wrangling data, freeing up time for actual analytics work. Let's begin by bringing our two data sets into Cisco Data Prep. I select the Library view, click the Add symbol, and choose the Local File option. I can then import my Bigco data. As soon as I import the data, it is visible, so I can get a quick sanity check. I repeat this process with the Lilco data. Notice that the two data sets are structured very differently. As we noted earlier, I have a good understanding of the Bigco data, but I have never seen the Lilco data before. Cisco Data Prep makes it very simple to bring data from files, databases, and big data sources into a single repository, making data readily available for individual or team use. The repository supports extremely large data sets and provides instant visibility to the data. The repository also frees me from the need for IT oversight. Now that my data is in the CDP library, I can begin using it in a project. A project provides me with my own personal sandbox, allowing me to rearrange and modify the data without affecting other users who may need the data in their own projects. That would be more difficult to do if I were using data on a database. I navigate to the project space in CDP and select New Project. I give the project a name and a brief description. As a first step, CDP prompts me to select a base dataset. I choose the Bigco data. I will now be able to modify the data in my project without impacting the data in the library, which others may want to use in their own projects. The Bigco data appears in my project space. In addition, I now see the CDP step editor. Whenever I manipulate the data in my project, a new step will be created. CDP provides enormous flexibility because it allows me to edit, delete, or reorder steps in any way I like. I can prepare my data in an iterative, exploratory manner, which fits the reality of data preparation and analysis. We'll be seeing more of this as we move through the project. I know that some of the columns present in this dataset will not be needed for analysis. In fact, these columns will only provide noise to downstream analytics and will make the data more cumbersome to use. For my next step, then, I choose Columns from the toolbar. This tool lets me remove unneeded columns simply by clicking them. The columns operation is added as a new step in the step editor. If I change my mind later, I can easily modify or delete this step. This is one example of how Cisco Data Prep makes it easy to tailor data for specific project needs. I have worked with BigCo sales data before, and it has always annoyed me that this column, which gives a numeric code for a city name, is simply named ID. I have had to explain what this column means over and over again to different users. I decide to use Cisco Data Prep to rename the column and avoid this confusion. I rename the column to City ID, and another new step appears in the step editor. This business-friendly metadata will be a great help to downstream analysts. I now believe that the BigCo data is ready. However, one nagging concern is the potential for data entry errors that lead to inconsistent results. These problems are notoriously difficult to uncover and are usually not found until very late in the life of an analytics project, which leads to confusion and delay, not to mention embarrassment when senior management questions some obvious discrepancies. Cisco Data Prep, though, can help find these data errors. I select the Organization column and choose the Cluster and Edit function. I'll use the Metaphone algorithm, which provides phonetic clustering. Other algorithms include Ngram, a predictive approach, and Fingerprint, which is more discriminating in its clustering. Cluster and Edit reports this suspicious circumstance in the data. JCPenney is spelled 4 different ways. This will certainly lead to problems which may not be discovered until data is aggregated far downstream in a visualization tool. I select a single consistent spelling, and CDP automatically fixes the data. As always, this work is added as a new step in the step editor so it can be revised or removed if needed. Thanks to CDP, I have found and fixed a problem that I never knew existed. Now that my BigCo data is ready, it's time to include the LilCo data. I begin by choosing Attach from the toolbar. There are 2 ways to attach data. Lookup means I want to join new data to existing rows. Append means I want to add new rows, which is the case for the LilCo data. I choose Append, and CDP prompts me to select my data. I pick the LilCo sales data. Note that I have enormous freedom regarding the data I use for a lookup or append step. The data may come from different technologies such as databases, flat files, or Hadoop. Data types do not have to match across the data sources, nor do column names. In fact, even the number of columns may differ across the data sources. I click Edit, and CDP prompts me to map columns across the 2 sources in any way I want. I can drop down a list and choose any column to map. This is much more convenient than SQL, which can be very picky about data types and formats. However, since I don't know much about the LilCo data, I need some help to get the mappings right. For example, I see that the LilCo data has 2 columns that contain city names, and I'm not sure which one would be the best match to the BigCo city name column. Cisco Data Prep can coach me through this problem. For any column, I can ask for a filtergram that shows me unique text values or numeric ranges. I create filtergrams for the columns in question. I can compare the two Lilco columns against the BigCo city data. And it becomes clear that Lilco's store city is the proper choice for my needs. Cisco Data Prep doesn't just help me manipulate data, it helps me understand the meaning of data, and it does so in a way that supports the iterative, exploratory nature of my work. After examining my filtergrams, I understand how to map the common columns in the data. I create my mappings. I can leave some unique Lilco columns, but I'll also take this opportunity to hide some columns that I don't need, just as I did with the BigCo data. Cisco Data Prep supports my exploratory work style by giving me visual feedback for everything I do. When I look at my results, CDP shows me clearly that I made a mapping error. It looks like I mapped a Lilco sales count to a BigCo sales date. But that was 2 steps ago, before I made my column hiding edits. No problem. CDP lets me revisit any step without forcing me to lose the work I did in subsequent steps. I expand my append step and revisit my mapping. There's my problem. I remap to the correct data. And while I'm at it, I'll rename the sales total columns to be more clear so I can avoid similar problems in the future. Cisco Data Prep gives me the freedom to edit, delete, and reorder any of my work steps without losing any of my work. It works the way I do. My data now makes sense. My concern, though, is that it is actually too detailed for this particular analysis project. This many rows at this level of detail will make some annoying extra work for my analytics team. I'd like to aggregate some of this data and make life easier for my team's downstream analysis efforts. I choose Shape from the toolbar. Shape gives me a wide range of advanced functionality, but Group By is the option I need now. I want each row to be unique for organization, city name, and country. However, I want to collapse all the sales dates into a single row, and I want the BigCo and Lilco sales counts to appear side by side in each row. I tell CDP to add up each company's sales counts for the new grouped data. My data is now grouped and summarized in a way that will make downstream analysis easier and more efficient. This would have been a fairly complex task with SQL, but CDP lets me do it very quickly and easily. There's one more thing I want to do to make the data more convenient for downstream analysis. I'd like to add a column that totals the sales for each company in each row. I choose Compute from the toolbar and select the Sum function. I pick the columns I want to sum up. And CDP creates the new column for me. Cisco Data Prep is as easy to use as Excel, but I can use it with enormous data sets. I'm ready to publish my data to make it available for analysis. I choose Publish from the toolbar and supply a name for the output. I can choose to publish as a file or as a database. For this project, I want a file. I can publish my file to a local file system or to Hadoop. I choose Local and click Export. My answer set is now available for analysis by my team. The original data sources remain unchanged in the CDP library, so I can use them in other projects if I wish. I can now analyze my data in Tableau or any other data visualization tool. As an analyst, I am now free to do what I do best. Rather than waste time wrangling data, I can immediately begin asking questions and providing answers. As we have seen, Cisco Data Prep has provided a much faster path to the meaningful work of analytics. I can spend less time wrangling and munging data and more time actually analyzing it. As an analyst, I am empowered to change and reshape data without the need for IT oversight. CDP provides me with the power of SQL, but in a much easier to use form. In fact, CDP gives me even more power than SQL because it is more tolerant of disparity in data types and structures. It lets me work in a familiar Excel-like environment, but gives me the power to work with even the largest data sets. The step-oriented design of CDP supports the iterative, exploratory nature of analytics. Libraries and projects support reuse of source data and sharing of answer sets. Perhaps most important of all, CDP helps me understand more than just the contents and structure of data. It helps me grasp the meaning of data. Thank you.